Do you play to win or do you play to not lose? Most men who want to find the right girlfriend, life partner, or wife don't express themselves fully. They don't play to win. They play to not lose. Self-esteem, the approval of others, the lady that's in front of them, which in turn then leads them to losing that particular person. I myself was married to a woman who wasn't right for me because I played to not lose instead of playing to win. Les Brown says, people fail in life not because they aim too high and miss, but because they aim too low and hit. Many years ago, I was in a nightclub with a friend of mine in Berlin. And this guy, back in the day, had a lot more swag than me. He was a lot more confident, so he was dancing with a lady, and I'm standing there, metaphorically speaking, with my in my hand, trying to socialize, and I couldn't. Looking around, feeling stupid, like I didn't belong, all in my head, not knowing what to say, and I saw a lady that I wanted to go and speak to. And it took me an hour and a half and 2 hours free beer to finally be able to walk over to her and ask her in English, German girl in a German nightclub, ask her in English, excuse me, where are the toilets? And the secretary looked at me like that. I felt so much blood rush into my head, you know, that sensation of embarrassment and shame when something happens and you feel like everybody's staring at you. You're so embarrassed. Your heart is beating, your palms are sweating. Yeah, that was the situation I was in, because instead of communicating my intent clearly, instead of putting my balls on the table and letting her know what was up, I asked her where the fucking toilets were. I was afraid of losing her. So many men are afraid of losing women. You can only, trust me, hear me now, this is important. You can only get the type of woman you're willing to lose. My friend Adam and I, we were actually sitting in a cafe, a restaurant here in Malaga at the beach, right over there, earlier today during the afternoon, and there was a couple next to us. And without going into any detail, this guy was evidently having a conversation with a woman that came from a place of scarcity and neediness. He was not controlling as such, but he was very afraid of losing her. He did not express himself fully. He was controlling, but it came from a fearful place. She goes to the bathroom and he's looking where she went, and she was really, really, really attractive. Now, whatever the circumstances of the arrangement they might have may be, or he might be her sugar daddy or whatever the case may be, you could see this guy has not created options for himself. He's very, very, very afraid of losing her. The way he overinvested and then went right back to controlling, it was quite amusing to watch. I genuinely feel sorry for the dude. In fact, I should have invited him to apply for a free initial consultation call right then and there. He probably wouldn't have done that. But I can guarantee you, no, I can't predict the future, but there's a rather high probability that this relationship is going to end in pain. Because if you're not willing to lose the woman, and why loss is ultimately an illusion, we're going to talk about in a second. Why, if you're not willing to lose the woman who's in front of you, you can never have her. Because you'll start communicating differently, you'll get controlling, weird, you'll get insecure, you'll get butthurt in your texts, you'll have ego defense mechanisms, you won't express yourself fully, you won't share your raw and honest opinions. Now, why is loss ultimately an illusion? Why do you have to understand that? Well, Tony Robbins says we only suffer if we get less loss than ever. We believe we have less of something, we lost something, or we'll never be able to get X, Y, Z again. And if you understand that whenever you lose something, unless it's a loved one, you'll never lose something that you cannot replace. And here's the interesting thing. Even if you lose a loved one, yes, that person's gone and it's tragic and nothing in the world can bring that person back. But remember what Marshall Rosenberg says. Any psychological need you have can be met independent of any particular person. You have a need for love and connection. And sometimes people get this, what we call one-itis, men. Focus on one woman. Oh, she's so amazing. Oh my God, I want her. I need her. If only I get this one individual, then I'll finally be happy, which is absolute and utter nonsense, because if you actually still believe that this is the one and only, then you're not grounded in factual abundance, which means you've never created a high amount of options for yourself, which means you haven't developed the skill set of actually communicating effectively. So even if you got her, you would find a way to mess it up. But so, coming back to it full circle, even if you lose a loved one, that loved one was meeting your need for love and connection. And the beautiful thing is, there's so many amazing people in the world. Now, the fact of the matter is also that 19 out of 20 people you'll meet, you're not going to want to have in your life as close people. Maybe even more. Maybe 19 out of 100, right? But there's still people out there that are worth meeting. These high-quality male friends that are going to make your life wonderful. These amazing women, they really exist. They really do. You just got to meet a lot of different people, realize what you want, realize what you don't want, disqualify the wrong ones, and move the right ones further down the funnel, so to speak, if we use marketing language for a second. But you have to understand that you can never truly lose anything because world is abundant. Let's say, oh, I get less love. Really? Just go out there and meet more women. I lost somebody. Well, I can meet my need for love and connection in different ways. I'll never be able to find someone like you. The biggest load of nonsense I've heard in a long time. You can replace anybody in the function they were playing in your life, which is to meet your need for love and connection. So the question becomes, once you understand that you can't really lose anything, why not go all the way? Why not play full out? The world is abundant. Sometimes we need to remind ourselves we're here at the beach in Malaga. And sometimes you need to be in nature and just swim with the ocean a little bit, ground yourself, meet people, do whatever you want to do. Rock climbing, yoga. Nature is pretty cool. Ground yourself in the factual abundance that this world presents. Can't lose anything. So I might as well go in all the way. And now if we go to a bit more of a technical level, if you're on a date with a lady and you're holding back, you'll never be able to get her. I'll tell you a quick story, very briefly. And this, I'm not telling you you're supposed to do what I'm telling you I did. It's just to elaborate the point that if you go all the way in on who you are, amazing things can happen. So 6, 7 years ago, I was on a date with a lady, and the entire date was 40 minutes in the bar. By the way, at the very beginning, she asked me what I would like to drink, or rather, I asked her what she would like to drink. She said red wine, so I said, okay, if you want it, you can go grab those seats for us, and I'll bring it then. And I ordered a cranberry juice for myself, because I wasn't drinking any alcohol at the time, which is very important, something I highly recommend for you as well. If you drink too much alcohol, if you're relying on alcohol as a crutch, then you're a pussy. True. It's really not you are, but in that particular aspect, you're exhibiting pussy behaviors. You're better than that. You don't need that, right? You don't need to rely on that. Anyway, so I didn't order that. And she was actually impressed by the fact that I didn't order alcohol. She asked me when I was halfway through my cranberry juice what that was. And I told her, and she said, well, now I actually feel a little bit stupid because I didn't want to order alcohol. I just thought that's what people do. Alcohol is what people do on dates, and she actually thought it was cool that I didn't drink. So for all the people who think, oh, you can only meet women, things can only go really well if you drink alcohol, which is nonsense. So anyway, the date was 40 minutes, and out of that time, 35 minutes, I was basically on a personal development rant talking about different psychological needs we have. It's like, bam, 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 because the reason I did that, it wasn't a strategy to get her to, it wasn't a tactic. I was just hours before then filming a client video for a training video for my clients on the various different psychological needs we have. So I was so in the flow because right after the shoot, I went on the date that's what was in my mind. And it was something that I felt quite passionate about because personal development is one of my biggest loves, one of my biggest passions in this world. So obviously I would talk about that. That date lasted 45 minutes, 40 minutes-ish. There were 5 minutes of normal talking, then I went off on that rant, and she was basically just listening to me, boom, going off. And I'm not telling you to do that. You should have a bit more of a normal back and forth, a bit more of a man-to-woman connection. There's better ways to do it. But even there, 15 minutes after we left the bar, we were already in a hotel, and good things happened. But you have to understand that I didn't care whether I lost her or not, because if I go on a rant and I talk passionately about psychological needs, personal development, something that's very dear to my heart, and she's not genuinely interested or at least curious, It's never going to work between the two of us. When I met Fernanda, these were things that I was talking about all the time. It's the one thing that I care about. There's a couple of things I care about. Martial arts, personal development, and that's about it. And then, other than obviously the dating side of things. That's about it. Maybe I'll develop some other passions at some point in life. And you have nerdy hobbies. You have nerdy passions, things you're interested in, business projects you're currently working on, new career, a team you're building in a startup, whatever the case may be. Why the hell wouldn't you talk about that? Whatever you're most interested in, whatever your number one project is right now, it doesn't mean you need to bore her to death with that the whole time, but you got to go off on it. And if you communicate it with certainty, with emotional intensity, and you don't doubt yourself, and you don't give a solitary fuck as to whether she likes it or not, she'll get very impressed if there's compatibility, and compatibility is something you can only discover, not create. Give her the full version of yourself. You're playing to win, you're playing to not lose. Other people's validation, her validation. I've seen so many men, just like the guy that I saw in that restaurant, who are so afraid of losing the person they're on a date with in an approach. Couple of weeks in, couple of months in, a year and a half in, like that dude probably was. Something like that, right? They were dating for a year and a half or something?
Well, they had serious conversations.
They had very serious conversations, yeah. So it's something around that timeline. And still, he's so afraid of losing her. She was very, very physically attractive. But let me tell you something. Just because somebody's physically attractive doesn't mean that you have a personality or an intellectual fit. So there's more things that matter than just physical attractiveness. And probably you're somebody who's not looking for a model, just somebody who's physically attractive, but doesn't have to be the most crazy attractive person ever. Just somebody that you can really match with, have vibes with, and build a life together. Have compatibility regarding your values, your lifestyle, what you want life to be like. But guess what? You'll only find that person if you express yourself all the way. Because imagine, if I only ever express this little shell of myself, you have a wall, and I only let people come here, well, then they can't really connect to my true self. If I only let them come here because there's a wall, because I'm not really expressing myself in my own quirky little way, in your way, not in mine, in your own way. If we don't do that, then how are people supposed to connect to us? Let me tell you something. It doesn't serve you at all to have people think of you as nice. The greatest insult you could ever get from a woman is half an hour into the conversation, she shakes your hand, she says, "It was nice to meet you." And then she walks off and makes love to some other guy. That hurts. That's not fun. But you will get a lot of niceness if you hold back. You can either have most of the world think of you as nice, kind of like this gray zone in the middle, and keep communicating like lukewarm water, or, bam, you play to win. You express yourself fully, and you'll have some who'll hate you, and some who'll really love you. The woman you want to be with, she's supposed to really, really like you. But you only get that if you play to win, not play to not lose. It's a very powerful affirmation, and more than that, an attitude towards life that I would like to invite you to join in on. Apply for a free initial consultation call if you want me to help you with all this personally.